All right, we're good, man. We're up. What's going on, people? What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to another episode, man, of Between the Pews. We're gonna be talking about some things here. Of course, we have myself, KP, Kenton Kern. You have Lenny over there, right? And you have Garth. How's everything, everybody? Right?
All is well. All is well. Cannot complain.
Yeah. You're
It's
enjoying the
great,
weather?
man.
Always enjoying the weather. South Florida is the place to be. So,
What about you, Garth? Tell me, are
Man,
you enjoying it?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm enjoying this, man. I don't know. But right now, I'm looking up at some coconuts on this tree here, wondering if it's gonna.
That's your only stress in life. You don't know if it's going to fall and hit you in the head.
That's the only stress, man. But but
Oh,
nah, the weather is great. The weather is great.
is that water behind you there, Garth? Or what is that?
I don't want to tell you, man. People might get jealous.
so were you in Oregon? Did you have this type of backdrop? And
Are you rubbing it in?
no, I'm
Don't
just
rub it
asking.
in,
I don't
man.
know. I don't
Don't
know.
rub,
I'm
don't
just
rub it in.
asking. He's always doing that. He's always doing that. I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
I don't know, man.
He's rubbing it in, man.
Oh my goodness.
The
Um.
water.
Yeah. So today's what, Wednesday. Lots, lots of things happening in our world. Lots of things happening in our churches. I mean, in terms of church wise, we're still dealing with pandemic, and we're not in our buildings yet, but that may change soon. I don't want to say too much about that. That may change soon, right? Um, but aside from that, I mean, we're just chugging along, right? Trying to make the best of what we got right now. Something interesting happened this past weekend, though.
Mm.
I was able to link with my former church back in Toronto,
Oh
and
wow.
the two tech departments did an incredible job of making it happen, man. And we see this stuff on CNN all the time, or maybe even some churches are doing it, right? But for me, it was a big deal that First Officers and Prone for Hope were able to connect. So we did Sabbath school together, right? We did a bunch of things in terms of the service to end off Black History Month. It was nice. It was nice. But that wind is heavy, Garth. Yeah.
Yeah, that weather picked up all of a sudden there. I think it's off the ocean, man.
All right, so we got a few things to talk about. Hopefully, we can get through it. We're gonna talk about the mask lifting of the mask mandate, right? Um, we're gonna talk about the golden statue that we saw with Trump, right? Um, we're gonna also talk about that gentleman that died for jaywalking there in California.
Wow.
He's
Wow.
after BLM, right? Yeah, so we're gonna, hopefully we can get through these things. But so Texas is lifting their mask mandate. Of course, we're dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic, vaccines being rolled out, and all of these different things happening right now. Johnson and Johnson. Let me just throw this in there. Johnson and Johnson just came out with their vaccine, and by the way, they're in partnership with Merck, right? They're in partnership with Merck. But what do you guys think? I mean, about Texas, I think Mississippi, and a couple other states, southern states, lifting that mandate, and they're citing a few things: businesses being lost, or people just fed up and tired, and all these different things. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's a lot of things. I think that we got into this debate maybe last time that we
Yeah.
were on, where we talked about do we see the government mandating getting the vaccine? And I think this is just an example, you know, in the United States, it's very interesting. They don't like to be forced to do anything. And so it's just amazing that with all of these different variants that are coming up, you know, with the UK variant, the South African variant. I mean, you're hearing now there's a California variant that they would be willing to lift this mask ban, and it's really crazy. I remember hearing a doctor, I believe it was a doctor actually in Texas, when everything was spiking last year. He says that what we're faced with now as a country is two issues: COVID-19 and stupidity. Right, this is why this thing is spiking, is because of stupidity, and we're seeing stupidity. It makes no sense. And I think I was just going to a place, and there was a gentleman who was walking around with no mask, didn't want to wear a mask. And it's just defiance. People don't like to be told what to do. But then at the same time, again, I think the love of money is just a terrible thing, because, you know, I'm sure these politicians have money invested into these vaccine companies. And hey, this is a way to boost business. And so it's really a terrible thing that we see going on.
Man, I honestly think that we're watching history replayed also. You know, we had a civil war in this country, and the states were split. And what we're experiencing now are the southern states still doing the same thing, as if we were in a civil war to some degree, where they make their own rules, they do their own thing, and they're trying to now enforce their own ideas. And so what we're seeing right now is just a repeat of history. Of course, I agree with you. Money, man, this is about money. And money drives this economy. And we have been losing a lot of money for the past couple months, if not more. And so at this point, it's no longer about people and about preserving lives. It's now about trying to preserve the funds and allow for the economy to bounce back, because it's been a struggle, and individuals are struggling, and our children are struggling too. So opening things back up, not allowing for people to wear a mask, is just a matter of it's really pushing the envelope. But really and truly, it comes down to money and a whole ideology, the political agenda to some degree, that's being pushed here in this country.
But I mean, in terms of you know, okay, I understand the mask aspect of it, but and it just depends on what individuals have been watching in the media. But some schools are open. Am I not right on that, Lenny? Like here, you know, kids are going to school. In other parts of the United States, you know, they have schools open. I was talking to a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Lenny from Oakwood, and he said that his son is in a basketball league. I think he's in Tennessee or something like that. So, but they do, you know, the sanitizers, the mask, and all these different things. So there is some aspect of it. When I was reading the story about Texas specifically, they're saying that one of the reasons why this governor is doing what he's doing, you know, outside of just being rebellious and, hey, don't tell us what to do, that type of thing. They're saying that he's trying to take attention from what happened with the snowstorm, right? And deregulate. You know, there's a lot about deregulation. Why did, you know, they've deregulated a lot of things there. And so when people lost their power, it was just because of a terrible system that they had going there. I mean, Mississippi, like I said, I think Georgia is looking into it if they haven't gone down that road. Not too sure where else, but Alabama as well too. Alabama here. I mean, in terms of wearing the mask, yeah. I mean, I agree. We haven't heard anything about a cold. We have not heard about the cold and the flu since this mask thing came in. So I think it is working when it comes to that. But I don't know. Yeah, the money, the dynamics of money is definitely in play or at play here. But you know, what are we gonna do? I know we're just commenting. We're just watching. You know, who's playing. You know, who's more powerful? Who can do what? States versus the federal government and all these different things mixed into it.
Yeah, and I mean it's really going to be sad because again, yes, schools are open, and so now when masks are mandated, a lot of these students are probably not going to want to wear masks. I know teachers in Texas, teachers in the South, and they're saying that they always have to talk and reprimand the students to place the mask on. Now you take away this mandate. Now you're going to be putting a lot of these teachers at risk. Now, of course, in Florida, I had to give DeSantis at least a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
Our governor, he is now allowed for for our teachers to be able to have access to the vaccine, 50 and older. So even though I know we have our concerns with the vaccine, but it's probably going to come to Florida soon. And again, the numbers are going to spike. They're going to spike again, and it's just, I mean, the biggest issue that we have is stupidity. So we're in this position because of stupidity. Because I mean, from what I understand, and of course, you guys have family in Canada. The numbers here in the U.S. Is not compared to what's happening in Canada. Because don't you guys in Canada? It's a little bit more controlled.
Yeah, it's a little bit more controlled, but listen, I mean, I think the latest figure I saw for Canada, all of the country, is like 874,000 coronavirus cases, right? That's a statistic. When you type in coronavirus Canada on Google, they'll give you the stats. They'll show you how many people have recovered. It's like 800,000 plus, right? And they show you the deaths. I think the deaths in all of Canada is like 22,000. So, when people look at those numbers, or 22,000 plus in terms of death, when people look at those numbers and they're saying, okay, the way this thing is being pushed is that, okay, everyone is dying. So you look at the deaths versus the recovery. A lot of times you don't hear about the recovery. So a lot of people are recovering. You have 37, 38 million people in Canada. That's not everybody. That's like, it's a percentage, a very small piece of that 37 million, right? So but it is controlled, but the government is also doing some very, shady things, and which is the part I'm always arguing about, and I'm always guarding against. Health, yes. Mask, yes. Safety. But when the Canadian government cancels all flights to the Caribbean and Mexico, and they are quarantining people in hotels and charging them $2,000+, you have gone beyond a coronavirus and vaccines now. As a matter of fact, there's even reports of sexual assault in these hotels. Right? So I want health, I want safety. I believe we should wear some masks, right? Because we don't have any complaints about the cold and flu, but the overstepping, the idea of coercion and all these different things. That's the problem I'm having here with the stories that are coming out regarding this. So Texas, Mississippi, and to a certain degree, you want to see individuals say some things or do something, because this month, actually next week, is going to be 1 year. 1 year. We're going on to 2 years. All the
True.
Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates and all of them, they're talking about 2022.
That's a long
You
time.
have, that's a very long time. We have to take this into consideration. So while I disagree with what Texas is doing, or sorry, I disagree the way they are approaching this, right? I think the masks are helping and they are good. But I understand, like we spoke about suicide rates going up already, right? And a whole lot of other things. We're not getting the recovery numbers and all these things. So I don't know what else to say about it, but I mean, it's happening, so we have to highlight it, and because our churches are in the world, right? So what happens in the world is happening in the churches, you know.
It's a sad time. It's a sad time in which we live in, because I mean, any loss of life, if it's one person, it's still
Right,
too many. And so
right.
we're talking for Canada, 22,000. I don't even know the latest figures for here, but I know it's quickly approaching 500,000. It's probably past that now. But it's just too many. And we're looking now at at lifting precautionary measures. And now this has the potential to have an outbreak in the school system.
Hmm.
When you're thinking about children,
Yeah.
the lives of children, the lives of our teenagers, um,
Right.
are going to be affected. They're going to be bringing that stuff home because
Yeah.
the parents are the one who has to care whenever a child gets sick. Now we're looking at an outbreak in a proportion that we have never seen once this mandate is lifted, especially in the schools, because a lot of the viruses usually come home with the kids, and that's how it spreads. We've been
Right.
trying
Right.
to that, but now when you open the doors for that, now who knows where this thing is going to go? So we are, or at least we should be bracing ourselves for something, a magnitude that we haven't never seen um, since this thing started a year ago.
All right. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else that we want to say on that one. Before we move on to the next the next topic. But it's interesting. I'm just watching to see what's going to happen. But the government needs to. And by the way, one last thing though on it, the coronavirus cases in a lot of countries are dipping. COVID cases are dipping. And I've said it before, there are doctors with some great solutions. And one solution that's being used in the United States here, especially here in South Florida, ivermectin, that drug. All these countries around the world, right, are using that particular drug. So when you see the virus dipping in these countries, more often than not, they're used to utilizing that particular drug in fighting against COVID. But those voices are silent, and people aren't taking this serious. So the government is just pushing one way. 7 billion people, and it must be a vaccine. There's a problem with that. But anyways, all right. We had an incident in California. I don't know if it's a week or two ago, where a gentleman was jaywalking and he was stopped by two police officers.
Yeah.
Right. Long and short of it, the man ended up dead. Um, this is after BLM, right? I'm actually sort of tired and frustrated in terms of reading these things, talking about it, or having discussions on it. I don't know. What do you guys think, man? You're killing a man for
Man,
jaywalking. And the video that they showed with the two police officers, they had a conversation about whether or not they should stop this man, right? But he ended up dead. They said, and then of course the narrative is he was reaching for the gun, right? And
I'm just exhausted, man. I'm just
I
exhausted.
don't know.
I'm
I don't know
exhausted
what
on,
to
on
say.
like, it's the same old, same old. And it's like when are we gonna get a break? When is it gonna stop? It doesn't end, and we have to kind of just be in limbo, walk on eggshells, be cautious everywhere we go because there is an open target and it's consistent. And no matter how
Mhm.
much we cry, no matter how much we we march, no matter how much we speak, it seems
Mhm.
like it just continues to happen. And it's just a matter of, well, when is the next one going to pop up? When is the next one gonna be killed? I mean, it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah, um, what else can we say? And I think that we always scratch our heads and try to come up with solutions to try to deal with this. And we're saying, well, maybe if we get new political leaders, if we
Mhm.
get different men and women of color as police chiefs, if we get mayors, who care. But we've had all of that. We've had a
Yeah.
black president. We've had black mayors. We've had black police chiefs. The problem here in the United States is it's systematic racism. All right, it's not because of the Ku Klux Klan. It's just the system here in the United States is just seeped and rooted in racism. Everything about what's happening here in this country is rooted in racism. When you look at the prison system, the people who are incarcerated, a lot of times, even though black people make up 13%, 12 to 13% of the population, the majority of the people incarcerated in prison. When you look at the school system, right? Even with the school system, and I think it was in Utah. I think it was in Utah. Just this past month, there was a little city in Utah where the parents did not want to celebrate Black
Black
History Month.
History Month, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They backed off it now. Yeah,
they had to back off of it because there was so much backlash, and so when it comes to the educational system, I think one figure said like $23 billion less. Like urban communities get $23 billion less money for their school systems than some of these white communities. When you look at just the median income of white families versus families of color, it's just off. It's just everything that we see in this country is just a system of racism when it comes to voting, voter suppression, and gerrymandering, and trying to hinder the Black and Spanish vote. It's just a system that we have. And then, of course, when it comes to crimes and people who are stopped, it's that's what it is. The drugs that people go to prison for, you get longer terms for certain types of drugs that we know in urban communities. And of course, when we had this whole crack epidemic in the country in the 80s and 90s, is a big thing. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
But now, with the opioid, we got to do something about this. This is serious, But what about what happened with the Black communities? And it's a system that we face with. We have a new president. A president who's supposed to be for the people. But I think the statistics say that, police brutality and the killings are still on pace for 2020, when Trump was in office. And so it's just a system, and it's unfortunate. We know that, I don't know if it's going to get any better.
even though the FBI came out with that report saying that white supremacists have infiltrated police departments all over the country, you still say even with that aspect of it, the system is still here at play. That's what you think.
Yeah, I think it's still at play. It's just the whole system is messed up, and I think that does need to be stated that that is what happened, is that they did try to change white supremacy, and they were very intentional about no more skinning your head and walking around with the white mask. Get an education, go to the military, then go in and join the police force. Right? That's what they actually have been teaching white supremacists to do. And so we see that, and it's just, I don't know if it's ever going to get any better. And of course, we follow prophecy. We're preachers. God's spirit is going to be slowly withdrawn from this earth, and it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And that's what I see. I wish that there was some hope that I could tell the folks, but I don't know. So
it's just sad. And you brought up Utah, right? And I was thinking, man, what's the population of Black folks in Utah? So when you have a system there where they look around and they can hardly see any Black folks, it's very hard to say let's celebrate Black history. So those type of things are evident in certain little geographical regions where there is a larger majority of individuals who are white as compared to those who are Black. And so we're there fighting this thing, continuing to be consistent, trying our best to be strategic in having those conversations as much as possible, in hopes that the system will change, and possibly the generation after us, if time would last, is coming, and they're
fiercer than us.
They mean business, and they're smart. They're going to be able to go places. So the system will change over time, but it will take time. But it's not to be discouraged. There is a strong force that is coming, stronger than even our generation was, and we're continuing to fight. and the ones after us will be even stronger. So it's just being consistent, and we will begin to see the change. And mind you, some things have changed throughout this past year,
Oh yeah, oh
especially
yeah,
in this
oh yeah.
pandemic. There have
Definitely
been
some
great
positives.
strides. So we've got to celebrate those moments, because there has been a lot of productivity, a lot of influence, a lot of individuals in positions of
Hmm.
power and
Yeah,
politics that have made changes to
yeah.
benefit not only blacks but everyone. And so that's a great thing. And so we just continuing here
Ossoff,
to fight.
Ossoff, and Warnock. Not to downplay what Stacey Abrams did, but of course, that win from those two Democrats there who got Georgia
Hmm.
and got into the Senate, and of course, Georgia came into play with the presidential election. I think a lot of those things are spin-offs of BLM and the push for change and getting people in position. Just to push this a little bit further, though, why is it so uncomfortable for us to talk about this in the Adventist church when we highlight, police brutality, police violence? I think Gart froze there, Lenny.
Yeah, he did.
Um, but talk about police brutality and police violence, particularly in some of our West Indian churches or Caribbean churches. This
Yeah.
is not something that's often and it's not just here in the United States. Even in Canada, it's very hard for people to talk about it, or they don't want to talk about it. They think, yeah, let's just leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is a big issue when it's not just race. I
Yeah.
think that when it's other important issues, we never want to talk about it. We don't want to deal with these important social issues,
Hmm.
even when it comes to sexual abuse and spousal abuse. I mean,
Yeah.
the Adventist Church, we it's taboo. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to touch it. And I think that for some of it, and I don't know how I can say this, but to say it, for some of it, our church does have issues. It has issues when it comes
Tell
to
us, tell
race.
us.
It comes to race. I'm trying to keep my job, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not
Yeah.
trying
All
to lose
right.
my job,
We,
right?
we want to keep ours too. You're
I'm
good.
trying not to change my name to Pastor Newton X, right? But I mean, there's just issues, when it comes to some of our leaders, and when we see some of these individuals through ABN and they don't want to deal with the issues and act like everything is okay and blue lives matter and not black lives matter. It's just and I think it
that
seeps
riot
down.
mash up that riot mash up that whole blue lives and all lives matter nonsense. That's what that riot did.
It did, but some people refuse to look the truth in the eye
Hmm.
and just accept it. But I mean, I think it trickles down. It trickles down, and then of course, we want to. You know what? I'm gonna let God speak because I'm gonna get myself in trouble if I say what I want
Oh,
to say.
Gar, what
You
Lenny
gotta
won't
tell
say,
it.
you
You
say
gotta
it.
tell it.
Yes.
Well, you know, within a lot of us don't want to deal with the issues because the system is still broken.
Hmm.
We have a system within the fabric of the church in particular where those who are white still sit in the positions of power. Um, when you look at the general conference, when you look at the unions, a lot of them are comprised of white males, and we can say that because that's just the statistics. Um,
But I
whereas,
also, I also threw in there, Garth, the fact that a lot of our Caribbean churches, a lot of the Caribbean members, don't want to address, or they have a hard time addressing these things, and they tend to push it off and say, "Hey, when God comes, He'll deal with it." Let's not be, so upfront
mhm,
and out there about it. And of course, a lot of them were against this whole, BLM thing too.
you know, man, I have a lot to say about that. Um, a lot of West Indians don't realize that they're walking into privilege to some degree
Hmm.
because um, when a West Indian comes into the United States, even though they are black, they're not viewed as an African American.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though there has been a fight before to get to a certain level, at this point, a lot want to identify to be able to get the position, which my head might be cut off because of this. You know, they want to identify with the position. So, a lot of African Americans have fought a fight before to get certain positions, get certain things in place. When the West Indian comes over, they now are able to fit into those positions because they somehow are able to swing like an African American or whatever. But the credit is not given to the fight that has been given before, and I think that's problematic. That when someone sees a black man in this country, they don't see you as an West Indian, they don't see you as an African American, they just see you as a black man. But when they get to know, well, okay, who are you? They say, well, oh, you're West Indian. Oh, you're not like them. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I have.
Mm-hmm.
Where they came to me and said, oh, you're not like them. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm not like them. Oh, you're not African American, and that's what it means. So there's a view where an African American is looked at very differently than an African Caribbean. And I think we need to recognize that there are some privileges that come with being an African Caribbean in this country, off the backs of African Americans in this country.
Garth X, I like it. That's good stuff, Garth X. But I mean, well said, and I definitely agree with it. But once again, it just trickles down because, of course, some of our leaders, they hold true to these principles, and when it comes to Adventism, we have been influenced by our white brethren, how we worship, how we preach. I mean, you guys can testify that they don't want you to preach
I'm
like
trying to.
black person preaches at
Yeah.
seminary, right? That needs to be said. People don't understand that they demonize if you preach like a black person, right? They don't want you
Claudia,
to preach like a black
Claudia
person.
Allen. Sorry, Lenny, for interrupt. I just didn't want to for Claudia Allen. There was a clip, a 2 minute clip of her. I don't know if she's like, I don't know what her position is. I don't want to say
She's
what
at
it is.
Message Magazine.
Okay, message. There's a 2 minute clip of her going around. She preached a sermon recently, and somebody took a 2 minute clip, or maybe it was her or whatever, and it's been circulating. And she was drilling down on the point that she was making is that you don't have to salvation does not mean assimilation, right? That was the clip, and she was basically talking about you can worship and praise your God in whatever where you're from or whatever skin you're in, right? So whether you're an Indian or a West Indian or African American, you don't have to assimilate. Meaning, she's pushing back against that whole, the way that we worship, it must align with European style of worship. The way that we dress must align. That is salvific. The songs in the European style is salvific. Our dressing is salvific. The way that we order our worship services,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
That's my point. That's my
yeah.
point. Is that's what happens, because when it comes to sometimes our West Indian Adventists, they've been so influenced by this European style, and that if it is salvific, that we have to sing hymns, and there is no other inspired songwriters except for the hymn writers. And so and it's funny. And so this trickles down when it comes to our view of racism, because of course some of our white brethren, it feels like everything is okay, and we don't want to deal with it sometimes with our white Adventists. Then okay, now we shouldn't deal with it as black people. But that's why I think this is the issue that we face. So,
And I think it goes so far back too, to some degree, because we don't realize that we have inherited somewhat a structure that was strategic in trying to get the West Indians to be subservient to white people. What I mean is that when you look at the slave Bible was written specifically for West Indians. I mean, that goes back to history to make sure that you had some allegiance to this the the Europeans who enslaved black Africans. They wanted to make sure that you were subservient to them. So they used even parts of the Bible. It was just parts of it to make sure that West Indians were following their way. And so what we are experiencing now is this tradition that has stemmed all the way from slavery all to modern day, where many individuals are still following the way of a European, thinking that that is the best way of worship, failing to realize that this is no way close to what God intended.
So what? With all those years of wearing black suit in the hot sun and on those dirt roads, so you're trying to
I mean,
say?
not, what's the point? I mean, what's the point? What does that show? You have missionaries going down to the West Indies telling black folks that they need to wear a suit, going to Africa and having people in the hot sun with 100 and something degrees in
Yeah.
Ethiopia wearing a suit. What does that matter? Individuals should be able to be in a frame of mind of worship in their own cultural stance. I mean, and that's what I think Claudia was basically going at, because
Yeah.
if we're trying to tell people that they must worship in a certain way, they must be in a certain way, this is what is acceptable and this is what is not. Like, who made us God? Like, there has to be some leeway there, in the whole evangelistic structure, for people to worship in the way that their culture dictates to some degree, rather than to just push away everything that they are or who they are, and then become what you want them to be. That's not of God, man.
You see how easy it is to go from jaywalking to the state of the church.
Man, you striking a chord there. You striking a chord, man.
Oh my goodness. All right, we only got a few minutes left. We can either talk about the golden statue of Trump, or we can talk about minimum wage and the fact that poor people are getting another L. And we have a democratically controlled Senate and House. Which one do you want us to talk about?
Nebuchadnezzar.
And then okay. What do you all think of that? I mean, it's just crazy. How did that even come into play? I don't get it. That was at CPAC, right? I'm looking at an article here. It says the creator of CPAC golden statue admits it was made in China after saying Mexico. So of course that's another twist to the whole story. But what is a golden, like? Where's your mind at? What is it truly because they really revere they Trump like that? Like, I don't get that.
I mean, Trump, again, we talked about this. Trump was able to mainstream and say some of the things that a lot of people wanted to say, and reveal their belief system, with xenophobia, building a wall and doing all these types of things. And people keep forgetting that, separating families, having children in these little camps and stuff. And a lot of people revere him. That's why, in spite of millions of Americans being infected by coronavirus and hundreds of thousands of people dying, you still had 70 plus million people who voted for Trump because he is a hero. That's why you have these confused individuals can storm a Capitol just because he says it. And before he won the presidency, he said he could walk down the street and shoot somebody in broad daylight and get away with it because he's like a cult. Leader, right? That people. I mean, I'm sure if he tell them to drink the purple drink, some poison, a lot of people probably do it. And so it's just amazing, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So
The man has a cult following, and they are strategic in what they are trying to achieve. These guys are already planning way in the future as to what's going to happen. So we're thinking about an election and we're celebrating. These guys are already strategically thinking about what's going to happen in the next couple of years, because they believe that he is the head of gold. I think it's Nebuchadnezzar complex, where he thinks that he is the one in charge, the great
Of the
Babylon.
world, of the world, not just, you know. Yeah.
And well, I'm going off. I'm a firm student of prophecy, and we know that Babylon is falling. So
Hmm.
um, that head of gold is going to crumble, and there's nothing that they can do about it. They can try as much as they can to erect this monument, do whatever, but at the end of the day, it's going to crumble because God says so. So that's where I firmly believe.
Yeah, we're gonna have to leave it there. I mean, I don't know what to say. It was just striking. Nebuchadnezzar, golden image. He got the dream. He's us. He's trying to usurp God's authority, and to see people in the 21st century in 2021, you know, rubbing that thing, bowing to that, all type of things. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy, crazy.
It's
But of
sad.
course, you know, they have you have Adventists who, you know, they're in this category too, and once again, they have to go check themselves. I mean, are you guilty of idolatry? Right? Is Trump more to you than God is? Yeah, there are so many different questions they would have to answer in terms of their faith and their Christianity. Well, I mean, we have some other things that we can talk about, but man, I have to go. So I think Lenny has to go
Goodness.
too.
Yeah.
But thanks for watching, folks. Whoever is watching out there, you know, Kent and Perrin here, good friend Pastor Newton and Pastor Dutton. We're here in South Florida. Two other guys that are normally on here didn't make it today. Shout outs to you, Prince. Hey, George, we miss you both. All right, you need to
Indeed.
come back on. Between the pews, you can follow me on you know, Free Doulas. That is the YouTube channel. This is on there as well. Subscribe, like, share, comment. All right. Until next time, folks. Take care. Only what you do for Christ is gonna last. Remember that.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Folks, I got to run. I got to leave my happy place, man, and get back to the grind.
Yes, sir.
Take
All
it
All
right.
right,
easy.
folks.
All right.
Definitely.
All right.